Hi, welcome to Notes from the Field, the Garden Continuum's video blog. I'm Monique Allen, and today we're going to talk about rose pruning. So before I show you how to prune a rose, I want to show you what you're going to use to prune a rose. So right here, I have a set of good tools for rose pruning. Gloves, because when you prune roses, you need to have gloves on your hand unless you're like a really tough gardener, which I am not. You want to have your pruning shears, and you can see I have several sizes. Sometimes, believe it or not, you need a saw. And when you're pruning, you want to make sure your pruning shears are sharp. So I have sharpening equipment here. And then you can see here, you want your pruning shears to work really well. And so having some WD-40, good old-fashioned, they also help clean. And I've got steel wool and Brillo so that you can keep them really clean, because if you have clean pruning shears, then you will not spread diseases, which is really easy to do. So as you know from some of my other pruning videos and some of my future pruning videos, I will talk about this more. My favorite pruning shears are bypass pruning shears because they make a very clean cut. They have a non-cutting edge and a cutting blade, and you can have big ones or very teeny tiny ones. I happen to love these both for rose pruning, and you'll see why. And also, I have loppers, and because what you don't want to do is you really don't want to twist and pull with your pruning shears, and sometimes with roses you can get actually pretty big pieces of dead wood and you need to cut them out. So this is the Felco 20. This is a set of loppers, and believe it or not, sometimes you need a saw. And so again, Felco, these are Felco 60s. You want to sometimes be able to just saw the larger wood of the rose when you have really big rose bushes. So this is a great sharpener, and you can sharpen your roses. Sharpen your roses. That would be really cool. As if roses aren't sharp enough. You want to have sharp pruning shears, and you want to have clean, well-oiled pruning shears because you don't want to spread disease. So this, I'm not going to go into how to sharpen. There are some good videos on YouTube about that, but you want to make sure that this blade is good and sharp so that you make a very clean cut. So with that, we're going to go and prune some roses. So rose pruning, why bother? As you can see, I have 3 different rose types here, and what's fantastic about them are these blossoms. So the reason you prune roses is because they grow pretty quickly during the summer season, and they change a lot from emerging from winter into spring through the summer and then back into the fall. So pruning them helps you to give them good shape, helps to keep them disease-free, and helps you to control insects even. And it makes sure, especially for your ever-blooming roses, the ones that are going to bloom over and over, that you have a lot of blooms coming from time to time throughout the whole season. Now there are several different types of roses. There are floribundas, grandifloras, and hybrid teas. All of those roses will bloom on new wood. And then you have what's considered the modern shrub rose, which is what I have here. I'll tell you about those in a second. And then you have your climbers and your ramblers. Now there are more roses than that, but the climbers, they can be repeat bloomers or single bloomers. Ramblers are almost always single bloomers. So without getting too technical, most of us have roses that bloom over and over during the season. But this is what happens. You can see this rose over here has really nice buds on it, as well as blooming flowers. So we have a flower right here, and then we have lots of little buds all through it, and then we have some that have already passed. This one over here, this is a holdover from last year, and you can see this side of the rose is blooming really nicely, and this side has a whole lot of twigginess, a little bit of buds, and a little bit of past bloom. And this rose over here had a ton of blooms on it. Now it has a ton of deadheads on it, and you can see the new buds, but they're all kind of hidden amongst the past blooms. So it really is important to deadhead your roses. Now what I've got in front of me, this is the Knockout series. This here is the Drift series, and this is the Oh So Easy series. So these roses bloom over and over throughout the summer. So when I'm saying deadheading, that may confuse you a little bit. So, and pruning, I'm using those words interchangeably. So deadheading is really talking about taking these spent flower blossoms, taking them off so that we can get new flower blossoms. Pruning is actually shaping the rose. There are 2 times of year when you shape the rose. In the spring, after the threat of frost, you're going to shape the rose. This rose right here was never shaped, it was never cleaned up, and in a little bit what we're going to do is I'm going to show you in the garden a rose that never had any deadwood removed or any shaping done to the rose itself. Deadheading is literally going through a rose like this and taking all of this dead off so that we can see the new buds. Now this one I let just go so that you could really see what happens if you don't deadhead a rose. And on this rose what you can see is that there are a lot of new buds on this rose, as well as flowering flowers that are actually flowering. But over here, you can see these are all spent, and these are creating rose hips. So there's a lot of energy going into that seed creation for the rose hips. We want to actually take that away and encourage more bud set and more flowering. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So on this rose, you can see you've got several things going on. You've got the spent rose heads right here. These are the dead heads that are creating seeds or rose hips. Then you have actively blooming buds. You pretty much want to leave this alone if you can, and you can see it doesn't bloom all at once. This bud is open and blooming, and then what's going to happen, you can see all these other little buds that are going to come, so we want to leave this, but right behind it we have more dead heads right here that we want to cut off, and over on this side of the rose we've got lots of buds going on. Okay, so all these flowers are gone and we need to prune this off, and if you follow this stem down you're going to notice that there's leaflets on the sides, and they have 3. So this is the leaf and these are the leaflets, and there's 3 you can see right here. And then if you come down a little farther, you see another little spent bud and another 3 leaflets. And if you come down farther, another 3. So this whole stem that I'm showing you right now is a flowering stem. And what we need to do is we need to get down beyond it until we get to a leaf that has 5 leaflets. And you can see that there's a little bud in here, and you're going to make a cut at a 45-degree angle about a 1/4 inch above that bud. So we're coming in right here and making a cut right above that 5 leaflet leaf. And so you can see it takes a little time, and you need to just go through the plant and determine where you're going to make those cuts. So I'm going to go through this plant right now and do that. So this rose here is called an Oh So Easy rose. It's similar to a drift rose. It's actually new to me this year. And I bought this one and it had a ton of buds on it, and I just let it go finish flowering because I wanted you to see what happens when you don't deadhead one of this type of rose. It's a little bit different. You'll notice that the buds are a lot smaller and the leaves are a lot smaller, so it's a little bit more picky. So I've chosen the small pruning shears to use this. So I'm just going to go through this and show you the difference from when you've deadheaded it, what it'll look like after, and you'll be able to see the buds. So in this spot over here, what I want to show you is, you can see behind me I've got these tall knockout roses. So you saw me pruning a young knockout rose in a pot. This is one that's been in the garden for about 4 years. And when I did the spring cleanup here, it was still too cold and too early to prune these. So I decided to leave them because this may be what you're facing in your garden, where your roses are blooming, but what you see is all of this dead brown wood poking up through the plant. And what oftentimes happens is gardeners are afraid. They're just worried, like, what the heck do I do with this? So I'm going to show you how to prune out the dead wood even when the plant has already started growing, so that it'll look beautiful for you again. So I've chosen this rose to prune and show you, but before I start, I just wanted to show you my two tool choices. So this is a pair of Felco 8s, which I like a lot, and they're going to be very good for all of the thin dead wood. When roses are alive, the thicker wood is very easy to cut with a pair of hand bypass pruners. But when you get into this heavy wood, it's actually a really good idea to have a pair of sharp loppers, because that wood is really, really tough, and these are Felco 20s. Okay, so I'm nestled down here with the rose, and I'm going to start with my hand shears, and I'm going to take just the tips off. And the reason for that is the thorns on the dead wood are really, really sharp, and I don't want them poking me in the eye or scratching my face, and I need to get down in the rose. So right off the bat, I'm going to take off, and you can tell even this small dead wood is hard. So I'm going to get it out of the way so that I don't rip my face off in the process, because that wouldn't be fun. Now what you can see is that I have this really big kind of club of a dead part of my rose, but I'm not sure if you can see, but there's a bit of live wood coming about halfway down this stem, and I want to save that because it has all these buds on it. And the truth is, it's going to be a little much for my pruning shears, so I'm going to come in with my loppers. And again, I'm trying to make that cut just about a 1/4 inch above the bud union, or the little collar. And I'm going to do one swift cut and cut this clump off. And you can actually see right in the center here how this wood died off. And you can tell that it's dead because of the black and the dark center in here. So now I'm going to go through and just prune away. Okay, I think I got it all. You can see now, if you look at the whole rose, that it looks like a much smaller rose. It's not as woody, but you've got all these beautiful buds on these new fresh stalks, and the bottom is all cleaned out. So don't be afraid of your roses. I think ultimately that's the message here. They do take a bit of TLC, but the modern shrub roses are really very, very easy. I highly recommend using them in your garden because they're going to bloom all summer long, especially if you deadhead them. So thank you for watching this potentially rather long video, but hopefully it was helpful and you feel inspired to get out there. Thanks for watching the Garden Continuum's video blog, Notes from the Field. Leave some comments below. You know we love to interact and answer questions as we chat along about this topic. Thanks a lot, and garden on.